Good afternoon, I'm Andrew Heaney, and today I might as well continue my series on the DC movies. So this video today will be focusing on all other DC movies that I want to talk about and have seen that are not in the DCEU or the original Superman and Batman. So that includes low-budget garbage from early DC, the Dark Knight Trilogy, the Oscar-winning Joker, and a couple others that I want to talk about. So first we have Steel. I don't want to talk about this movie for very long. It's horrendous. I mean, Shaq is in it and he does not act for shit. Apparently he can't act for shit, even though I haven't seen his other breakout film, Kazam. Not Shazam, Kazam. Because Shazam's good, Kazam's not, apparently. But Steel is horrendous. There's nothing redeeming about it, other than the fact that it ended pretty quickly. Absolutely terrible film. There's no reason to watch it. But then again, Catwoman came out a few years later, and it's worse. Oh, Catwoman, oh crap. Halle Berry, I feel so sorry for you. You are the only woman of color to win an Oscar. Fuck the Academy. But, and yet you decide to star in this piece of shit? I mean, maybe you were put here by your agent or by the director, Pete Tough, I have no idea. This film has nothing redeeming in it. Like, there's nothing even ironically funny in this movie. Much like Steel. Like, I don't know if I count this as a DC film because it's one of the most unfaithful adaptations I've seen in my life. You know what? It might be the most. Last Airbender and Cat in the Hat, which, granted, the latter is not as bad as I remember it, or as bad as I talked about previously, are probably worse adaptations than this, but this is up there, man. This is totally up there. I hate this movie with every fiber of my being. There's no reason to watch it, and I wouldn't show it to my worst enemy. And then we got Superman Returns, which I kind of like it. It was the first Superman film I ever saw, so it has kind of a place in my heart. Maybe not a special place, because it's not a great film. I am glad I rewatched it. Would I see it again? Maybe not, but I am glad I saw it once. The actors are really good, including Kevin, as Lex Luthor. The actress for Lois Lane was fine. Brandon Routh as Superman, he does a good job emulating Reeve, I will say. I do feel like it's a shame this film bombed, because you could have started your cinematic universe from here instead of Man of Steel, which I will get to. This is a much better film in my opinion than Man of Steel. Its biggest problem is that it's really long and kind of boring. I mean, the plane scene is incredible and the third act is awesome, but still. I also don't like the twist about Superman's son. Still, I like this movie. I'd even recommend it to Superman fans. Next we have Watchmen. I like Watchmen. Do I like Zack Snyder as a director? No, I don't. I think this is his best film, by far. Granted, I haven't seen his remake of Dawn of the Dead, but I really like this film and I think it's really underrated. Some of the acting from Patrick Wilson and Malin Ackerman is pretty bad, but Dr. Manhattan and Rorschach, every scene with them is incredible. Either of those two characters. I love every scene with Rorschach especially. The opening title sequence is one of the best in any DC movie in my opinion. Yeah, I said it. Special effects can be cheesy, I will say that. Still, this is a film that I think got trashed way too much by critics. Even though it does have its flaws, the story structure is pretty interesting, and not in a good way. The film is way too long, even the theatrical cut. But then again, there's nothing I would really cut out. The editing's fine, the cinematography's pretty good, but still, I do recommend this film, and I would see it again, for sure. This is the only Zack Snyder film I would say stuff like that to, by the way, because I really don't like Zack Snyder as a director. Green Lantern. This film is not really worth talking about. I feel bad for Ryan Reynolds, and I feel bad for Green Lantern as a character, because not only did this film set back Ryan Reynolds as for his career until maybe Deadpool, where they made fun of it in that film, interestingly enough, and in the sequel, which I won't talk about that yet, but, and Green Lantern as a character is actually pretty cool. Like, come on, you can create whatever weapon you like with your ring and you're chosen to protect the galaxy. That's cool. They fuck it up completely. Like, this film is really just about a man and a woman, and their chemistry is terrible. The special effects are laughable. The world building, I don't like using this term because it doesn't really matter. The world building is almost non-existent. Great cast members like Mark Strong as Sinestro, and also Michael Clarke Duncan as the big guy. Kilowog, that was his name. Yeah, those two are totally wasted. It's terrible. The villains are laughable. The Elephant Man dude, I'm not the first to make that joke, and the giant cloud thing, absolutely terrible villains. Do not recommend this movie. It's not the worst thing ever, though. The pacing isn't that bad. In fact, the film feels like it's over before it begins, so there's that. Ryan Reynolds doesn't do that bad of a job, but again, he's just fine. It's better than a few other DC stinkers. Now let's talk about the Dark Knight trilogy. What am I supposed to say about the Dark Knight trilogy that other people haven't said? It's so damn good! Well, I'll start with the basics. It's directed by Christopher Nolan, who pitched this idea to Warner Brothers to reinvent Batman in a darker, more realistic setting with Christian Bale as Batman. And I'll start with Batman Begins, because that is a great start to a great series. Batman Begins is great. It's one of my brother's favorite movies. I would have to disagree with him on that, but still. It's a really good start. Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul is a fantastic villain. Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow, also a fantastic villain. I've said this before, villains can make or break a movie. That's why I keep talking about them. Still, Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne and Batman, they're both awesome. Christian Bale is a badass, Batman's even more of a badass. Katie Holmes as Rachel Dawes is probably my only problem. That and some of the effects are a little iffy. Other than that, I don't have very many issues with this movie. That being said, it is probably my least favorite of the trilogy. It's just not as good as The Dark Knight, and not as much of a spectacle as The Dark Knight Rises. But still, this is a great film, and if you haven't seen it, please see it. This not only revitalized Batman, but it's also a great film and solidified Christopher Nolan as a fantastic modern director. He's one of my favorite modern directors working today, actually. Up there with the Coen brothers, David Fincher, Quentin Tarantino, Edgar Wright, Alejandro González Iñárritu, and Alfonso Cuarón, other directors like that. Still, highly recommend Batman Begins. The Dark Knight. This is one of my favorite movies, as many of you already know. This is one of the only superhero films I would give a rating higher than a 9 out of 10. This one deserves the perfect 10. It's a perfect sequel. It expands on the world in meaningful ways. It continues the story by introducing great new characters. Heath Ledger as the Joker, may he rest in peace. You are the best villain ever. But also Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent / Two-Face is incredible. Probably the best iteration of Two-Face outside of the comics, in my opinion. I'm not even kidding. Much better than the Arkham games. Obviously better than Batman Forever. Ugh. Poor Tommy Lee Jones, but what a fantastic character. I love his character both before and after he becomes Two-Face. The Joker, come on. What am I supposed to say about him? I will say this, even if his screen time was only limited to maybe 10 minutes instead of 50, which I'm pretty sure what he has in the film, I would still be blown away by his performance. And that is why I also consider Jared Leto's Joker to be complete garbage. But I don't want to talk about that right now. His performance was definitely Oscar-worthy, and he deserved his posthumous Oscar. May Heath Ledger rest in peace. How he went out was truly tragic. But regardless of the hype surrounding his death, this is the best performance in any superhero movie ever, with possibly one exception that I will get to in this video. The Dark Knight is an incredible film. The fourth act with Two-Face doesn't feel bloated. The third act with the boats and Joker does not feel bloated. None of this film feels bloated. Michael Caine as Alfred is fantastic. Morgan Freeman as Lucius Fox is great. I love this line.
Let me get this straight. You think that your client, one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the world, is secretly a vigilante who spends his nights beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands? And your plan is to blackmail this person? Good luck.
Gary Oldman as Gordon is awesome. Actually, all the characters are awesome. Even Maggie Gyllenhaal as Rachel Dawes, I adore much more than Katie Holmes as her. I'm glad they recast her. Surprised to see Cillian Murphy as a Scarecrow in here as well. Eric Roberts, I think his name is Maroni, he even offers a decent side villain. I adore The Dark Knight. One thing I want to talk about very briefly is the sound design. Absolutely amazing sound design. It deserved its Oscar for the sound editing, I believe. The score by Hans Zimmer is also one of the best in the world. From him. Absolutely. Next we got The Dark Knight Rises, which surprisingly a lot of people hate. Well, guess what? I don't. It's not as good as The Dark Knight. It's probably on par with, but maybe a little bit better than Batman Begins. Tom Hardy as Bane is a fantastic villain. Anne Hathaway as Catwoman is the best character in the movie, if you ask me. A lot of people have been picking apart a lot of plot contrivances, which I do not agree with. There is one contrivance, it might even be a plot hole actually, that I do not like. That's when Bane locks the entire police department in the sewers. That I thought was dumb. Other than that, I don't think I have any problems with this movie. Is it a little long? Yeah, but there's nothing I would have cut out. Ben Mendelsohn, who I did not know was in the movie prior to this, and to give a bit of context, this film I was excited for 2 years at least. I was like super hyped for this movie. I followed all the set leaks, even though I didn't know what they were about. I followed all the cast announcements, and I still did not know Ben Mendelsohn was in this movie as, what's his name, John Daggett. He's a decent side villain. I did not entirely love the twist with Miranda as Talia. In fact, actually, I take it back. Her death scene is another problem I have with this movie. She just drops her head and closes her eyes. Bane's death is also really anticlimactic, but that's kind of nitpicking. Bane is a fantastic villain. I love Tom Hardy as him. Much better iteration of him than 2 of the Arkham games. Arkham Asylum and City, that's a terrible version of Bane. Arkham Origins, I like his version of Bane in that one, but regardless, Tom Hardy's Bane is actually more faithful than some people think it is. I've read the original Nightfall comics. Granted, the source material doesn't really matter in this case. All you need is a good movie, and this is a good movie. The sound design is incredible as usual. The score by Hans Zimmer is fantastic. The cinematography is great. I don't think this is on the cinematography, so to speak, but the aspect ratio keeps changing from IMAX to not IMAX. It's kind of lame, but still, that's a nitpick. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Officer Blake, aka Robin. Great character. Matthew Modine's character, I don't remember his name. He was kind of gratuitous, I will say that. That and Ben Mendelsohn's character Daggett, although they're decent characters, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things, so I don't really think they need to be there. You could have cut them out, probably. Maybe not entirely, though. Great movie overall. The ending is fantastic. I think it's just a great ending. Perfect way to end this trilogy. So yeah, I love the Dark Knight trilogy so much. It's one of the best trilogies out there. While none of these films are as good as The Godfather or The Godfather Part 2, they're all better than Godfather Part 3, so there's that. Well, what I'm trying to do is compare the trilogies. Toy Story does not count, because there's a 4th one now, even though the 4th one's really good still. Lord of the Rings is the best trilogy of all time, in my opinion, so... The new Planet of the Apes series is great, but not as consistently great as the Dark Knight trilogy. Same goes for Back to the Future, not Star Wars, definitely not Godfather, because The Godfather Part 3 ruins the series in my opinion. So yeah, aside from Lord of the Rings and maybe the Cornetto trilogy, this is one of my favorite trilogies out there. So the last film I want to talk about before I end this video is Joker. I like Joker. I think it's kind of overrated. Out of all 9 of the Best Picture nominees that I've seen for that year, this was my least favorite, and the only one, in my opinion, that did not deserve said nomination. I'd say it deserved 4, maybe 6. There's 2 others that I'm iffy on that do deserve a nomination. Joaquin Phoenix is one of the best performances of that year. In fact, aside from Willem Dafoe from The Lighthouse, that was my favorite performance of the year. Definitely deserves his for Best Actor. The best score by Hildur, I can't pronounce her last name. Fantastic. Definitely deserved its win. Makeup and hairstyling was awesome. Definitely deserved that nomination. The cinematography did not deserve to win, but it did deserve to get nominated. I was a bit shocked with the best sound editing and mixing nominations, but they were cool. Why not? The screenplay is good, but it's very derivative of much better films, namely Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. The editing is fine, it's nothing special. Costume design, aside from the Joker costume, is just close, so I don't get that nomination. Best Picture, no. I like this movie a lot. It's got a few flaws. The screenplay is a little clunky. Got some amazing moments. Like I said, the score is incredible. It gives you such an off-putting feeling by the illusion that it's hitting the wrong notes. That's really cool. Joaquin Phoenix, again, is incredible. The other actors are pretty good, too. I don't know who is playing Thomas Wayne. I thought it was Alec Baldwin, but it's not. Apparently it was originally going to be Alec Baldwin, but it's not. Robert De Niro is pretty good for the 2 minutes he's in. I like Zazie Beetz, even though she's not in the movie a whole lot. I mean, I like how this is more of a Joker movie as a cautionary tale about how we treat mentally ill people. I like that. But of course it pales in comparison to something like Parasite, which definitely deserved Best Picture, I will say that. I'm a little surprised a lot of, how do I say this? I'm surprised a lot of anti-SJWs, who I fucking hate, like this movie. Because this film has very left-leaning ideologies, if it has ideologies at all. I mean, granted, most of the stuff is class-based, but that's pretty left-leaning. Arthur Fleck seems to be very left-leaning. He is not attacking liberals nor conservatives. I'm also surprised the class commentary and the mental illness commentary in this film is very left-leaning. That is not a problem. I don't think it's a problem. I'm just surprised that so many crazy anti-SJWs like this movie, even with that. So I just found that interesting, but I'm probably gonna get flagged by a bunch of them because of that. Still, I like Joker. I like all of the movies I've mentioned, except Green Lantern, Steel, and Catwoman. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Please stay home. Again. Okay? I have been staying home for months now. And yeah, it's hard, but please, for the benefit of this world, stay home. Stop protesting the stupid lockdowns. Just wait till it ends, and we'll all be better. Hopefully. That's all I have to say. See you next time.